Hey guys, how's it going? So the balance patch just came out, and there were a lot of expectations on this one, I would say. The current meta is in a state that a lot of people are not having fun. It's been kind of stuck there for a while. A lot of very strong units are currently plaguing the meta. And so I would say this balance patch had a lot of potential and weight put upon its shoulders because people wanted something that would really change things up. There's a lot of weak characters that could get changes. Some of the ML5s, such as Judge Kise, Solitaria, Designer Lilibet, are very weak and they haven't received buffs. So a lot of people are looking forward to this and possibly saying that this is like the hope for the game right now, because otherwise you won't be stuck in the same meta for a while. And so these are the buffs that we received. Arctim and Shadow and Judge Kise, they definitely needed buffs overall. I don't know about Commander Lorena, it's a little bit strange, but you know, having a unit that's good in PvE, it's always fine to buff that kind of stuff, but there is a problem with this, and I'll get to it in a moment. Melissa, she definitely needed a change, so, you know, that's kind of nice. It's nice to buff her. And All-Rounder Wanda, she definitely needed a buff, and I actually like this character a lot, so that made me happy. Wind Rider, I think that's good to buff it. That seems nice. And Fairy Tale for a Nightmare definitely needed a buff, so I'm glad about that one. Now, here's the issue with buffing characters like Commander Lorena. It's completely understandable to buff characters that are not only good in PvP, but also PvE. However, she's already a good character in PvE, and also, the big issue with these buff changes, look at how many characters are being buffed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 characters, and we have to wait 2 months? That's a very long period of time. And I'm not really sure that they're moving fast enough. In fact, I can definitely say they're not. This is taking way too long for, a lot of the time, very subpar changes that are not influencing the meta enough. So, not too happy about that. Also, only a couple artifacts? 2 months? That's a long time. So, that's not too great. So, first of all, we go to Arctim and Shadow. So her S1 change is actually very good. One of the biggest problems with this character is consistency, and so this adds more consistency to her by allowing her to ignore the effect resist from this, which is great, and also, as you see with the S2, changing from 35 to 40, adding more consistency to the character. It's a very small change, but everything really helps when it comes to these percentages, right? 15% is a small number, but it happens all the time when you're trying to land a debuff. So, going up to an 80% chance, that's nice. If you soul burn this, that's an automatic chance of it landing, and then, you know, 80% chance, pretty good. And then her S3 also has a 70% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. So that's definitely strong, and it makes her burns actually do more damage because they have decreased defense, and also, you know, she gets an extra turn, so she gets to S1 into possibly S2 to do a bunch of damage. Seems pretty nice. I think that these buffs are actually very good for her. But there's one issue. I think she still has some of the problems with just being an RNG slot machine that she currently has. She'll either pop off and go crazy, or she'll do absolutely nothing in a lot of matches. Now, adding this actually changes a lot. Making it so she ignores effect resist means she adds a lot more consistency to possibly not just be sitting there doing nothing. But there's still the problem with her being usually on counter set and kind of hanging out. We'll have to see how she performs. I'm not sure if she's really going to be a meta changer, but she seems like the type of character that actually has some potential right now. She's a lot more of a threat now. She's more consistent with this. She can choose priority targets to guarantee land the debuff, which is a big deal. For instance, landing it, let's say, on Rem. So Rem can't counter or go demon mode. That's a pretty big deal. So it seems pretty nice overall. I think she might actually see some play now. I think this is definitely some stuff that she needed. Judge Kise. So this is a long-awaited one. She's a very weak character. Nobody uses her. She badly needs a buff. She's currently on the Mystic banner. She has an amazing skin that came out. And these are the buffs they changed. So her S2 now only has decreased hit chance. They removed this because they moved it onto her S3. And they also buffed the chance from 75 to 80% chance. And what it is 80% chance to dispel 1 buff and increase the skill cooldown 2 times by 1 turn. And when you awaken her, it's 3 times. And so, you know, she gets skill null here, so that's good against counterattacks, like let's say Violet, Rem, those kinds of things, except the rest of your team is still getting hit. And it now deals more damage the more people that are getting hit. So they took that off of her S2, moved that onto her S3. And also, even though it says that these numbers are lower, they overall increase the damage dealt. So they just reduce the amount you get from the Mola enhancement. But that's it. I don't really think that this buff is all that great. They moved the things around, but they didn't add that much functionality. She still has basically almost all the same problems. The one problem they removed is that you don't have to soul burn S2 into S3, which is a big improvement. It makes it so you don't have to S2 to strip their buffs and then S3 to reset them, which is really, really nice. But is that enough? Is the soul burn the only reason that people weren't using her? I would say no. I think her as a character is a kind of a problem. Her base damage is really bad. Her base speed isn't insane to make it so that she can be an opener constantly. There's RNG, that's an 80% chance, and then there's also 15%, so that's a 20% and a 15%. You're hitting 4 people. Pretty likely that you're not going to strip the buff, to be honest. Now, if it actually lands, it's actually pretty good, but is that really enough? I feel like she's just the same character, but a little bit better now. And I just don't really see that changing things up too much. I'm not really sure if this is going to do any justice. And with ML Lilius on the way, Conqueror Lilius, I don't think anyone should pull for her when Conqueror Lilius is in 2 weeks. Just doesn't seem worth it. So I find this buff to be pretty disappointing overall. I think she can work with Closer Charles because he pushes her up and gives attack buff, right? You'll probably build her kind of speedy damage and she'll get pushed up, right? But I'm not sure if this is enough. It's possible she could be used as, like, let's say a 250, 260 speed character with as much damage as you can possibly use on her, just to be kind of not only a damage dealer, but an annoyance, like a threat to people with the reset. But I'm not sure if this is going to be used in any other way. I could be wrong. It's entirely possible. But it feels like that's the only way people would utilize her at the moment. And I'm not a huge fan. I kind of wanted a rework of this character. So Melissa. These changes are nice. Her S2 now gives immunity, so she uses her S2. It hopefully resets. She has immunity, so she can't be disabled. It's nice. And the S3 says, applies curse regardless of whether the attack hits. This is clearly made just for Violet and Remnant Violet. They're introducing more counters to Violet. You saw they're also buffing Wanda, which we'll get to real soon. So just as many counters to Violet. And while I hate Violet, and he's an incredibly frustrating character, I do not think that he is one of the big issues of the meta right now. So I find it kind of a waste. It feels like they're behind the times on this. Commander Lorena, she now does damage proportional to the target's max health on her skills, which is great. She has slightly more defense, I guess. Increased combat readiness reduction of her S3, and also increases the damage dealt to elite and boss monsters on her S3. So she's a way better PvE unit now. It's actually, she's going to shred Abyss with the percentage damage. That's great. Next is Wanda. Wanda actually received some pretty huge buffs. So she now guaranteed decreased combat readiness by 15%, which is nice. She also has a 100% chance to stun for 1 turn on her S3. Actually, for not 1 turn, for 2 turns on her S3, and decrease speed rather than unhealable, so this really disables them a lot. And at first I was disappointed because I thought, oh, that's it? She still has one big problem. Well, at the bottom, when you're using it, has a 100% chance to decrease the buff duration of the target by 1 turn before the effect. So you can remove their immunity at the start of the match and immediately stun them for 2 turns and decrease speed. That's great. That's a huge improvement. That's exactly what she needed. Now she's more like Falcon or Clury in some ways, which is really helpful. Also, 70% chance to hit with weak points. So her S1 and S3, really high chance of hitting. She can't miss, really. So Remnant Violet and Violet get hard countered by this. Another Violet counter, as you can see. And also now she starts with kind of like a pseudo Guiding Light, where she starts battle with stealth, which is great. So she can't be dealt with too easily by a lot of stuff. She's almost guaranteed to be able to stun. So overall, I'm not really sure if this is going to make her that important of a unit for a lot of people, but I like that she actually seems like a viable unit right now. I'm not sure if damage Wanda is really going to be good enough, and that's probably how people would use her, is like, I don't know, 230 speed damage Wanda, let's say. But we'll see. I really like the changes they made to her. I think this fixes a lot of the problems that she had. We don't know if this is enough, but I think it's a great, great step in the right direction at the very minimum, and I like it. I'm a fan of this. I think they did a good job with it. Now for the artifacts. So Wind Rider, it does the same total damage, which is 60%, but now it's split, where you automatically get 20% attack, and then after you kill somebody and you stealth, you have 40% for the next attack. So it's a little bit better. It makes it so it's easier to do damage to get a kill. But that's kind of it. Still kind of a meme artifact. Fairy Tale for a Nightmare. Now this is a huge change. After an extra attack, counterattack, or dual attack has a 60% chance to dispel a buff from the target and then also do the fixed damage it normally has. So that makes it so it's like a Iela Violin for people when it's not their turn, which is actually pretty damn good. The only characters that come to mind that really want this are Champion Zerato, and guess what? Arctim and Mercedes, who was buffed. So I think this is going to become her best artifact. It boosts her damage by an extra amount every single turn, especially on her S2, which is an AoE. That's great. That's a huge boost overall through a long fight, which Arctim Mercedes is generally used in longer fights. And also has the strip, so it has 20% less chance to strip than Iela Violin, but I think the extra damage stuff makes up for it on a character like this. It means you don't need to build as much damage on her too. So I think that's a great artifact change. I think it's worthwhile people pulling it for the future possibly as well. But I don't think people should pull on the actual banner. They should probably use 240 powder to get it from the powder shop. I don't think it's worthwhile actually just straight up pulling. Not many characters really use it either. But that's pretty much the buff patch. And as you can see, that's not really that much. I don't think that any of this is going to change the meta. The current meta issue is characters like Angel of Light, Belian, Rimuru, picked in almost every single match. Emil Kowarik, he's in almost every single match. These characters run the game right now in high-end RTA. And even if you think that, well, it's only high-end RTA, they need to bounce around everyone, that all trickles down. And even in lower ranks, you will be seeing a lot of that kind of stuff more and more as time goes on. And so these need solutions. I think that they really should work more on solving some of those problems. It feels as though this balance patch is very out of touch with what's a problem at the moment. They made 2 separate characters to deal with Violet, and while he's annoying, he is not currently one of the strongest at the moment. People are not first picking Violet anymore. Things have changed. So I'm not a fan of this whole balance patch. It feels like we waited 2 months for very little. You know, if you're a fan of these characters, you will be happy. Those are kind of nice, I'll definitely say. They also said down here, we're continuously monitoring and reviewing each hero and artifact mentioned in your suggestions. I'm not sure if they are. However, a series of processes such as collecting/verifying data, planning, and balance tests have to be done. I don't believe them, honestly. I would like to see this data. I would love to see this data that seems to have very little value or just be plain wrong at this point. I don't really understand why they make some of these changes. I find it very disappointing. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people, especially high up, who are very, very unhappy with how Smilegate has recently been dealing with the balance of the game. And I think Smilegate needs to understand that balance is pretty important. And I speak mainly from an RTA perspective, and obviously other things matter as well. Arena, Guild War also matter, and obviously PvE. But when it comes down to it, RTA is one of the most endgame biggest deals in the game. It's kind of where most of the content is. It's where most of the hype is. It's why most people want to watch people play the game as well. And they really have to focus on making it a healthy environment, and right now it just isn't, and I don't think this balance patch solves any of those problems. So I guess that's kind of my thoughts on the current patch that they just released. We have 2 weeks until it comes out. Maybe they would change stuff, but I kind of doubt it. They never seem to. But yeah, I hope you liked it. If you have any questions or any thoughts, just put them in the comments, and thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it.